This video features the best brawlers you need to be playing in July 2024. With the new season and the new brawler, let's see how much the meta has shifted so far. Alright, so to start off this video, the first brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Meg. Now, Meg is one of the strongest brawlers in the game right now because of all the buffs and reworks she got. For example, Meg's mech health was increased from 3,700 to 4,000. Meg's mech now fires 16 projectiles instead of only 8. Meg's mech reload time was decreased from 1.5 seconds to 1.1 seconds, but she also did receive nerfs like Meg's mech attack range was decreased from 9 tiles to 7.33 tiles, and also Meg's mech attack damage was decreased from 210 to 170 per projectile. All of these buffs and reworks has made Meg such an annoying brawler to deal with, but it's mostly because of the number of projectiles being fired is doubled and the reload speed was decreased. Now, Meg is still going to be a very underrated brawler to play in game modes like Knockout, where you're going to see a lot of sharpshooters, and that's where she's going to really shine. Like, if you can dodge a few attacks and then run towards the sharpshooters, there's no way they're going to be able to deal enough damage to take Meg down. Now, not only is Meg going to be solid to counter sharpshooters, she's going to be very good to counter tanks too. You can use her high DPS from the mech to deal heavy amounts of damage to the tanks, and then use your swiping super to do even more damage to lower the enemies down quicker. Now, with Meg's mech getting the rework and all the damage buffs and everything like that, you gotta be trying to stay in that mech as long as possible. The good news is that it doesn't take long for Meg to chain her super back, and even if you die trying to get the mech back, you will respawn in it anyways, so it's kind of a win-win no matter what with Meg. Alright guys, the next brawler we're gonna be talking about is gonna be Piper. Now, when you're playing Piper, I gotta recommend that you play her on game modes like Bounty, Wipeout, and Knockout. A game mode like Knockout, for example, tends to have a lot of maps that are opened up or have lanes where Piper can shine due to her high damage at long range. Now, no matter where you play Piper, if you don't want to play her in the game as I suggested, you're probably going to be facing tanks eventually, so you have to be using your super as a way to escape them. If you can, try to land behind a wall or behind cover when using your super, but if you can't even do that, just land where the enemies aren't standing anywhere near you so they can't burst you down when you land. You never know when an aggro brawler can surprise you out of a nearby bush, so always have one on standby ready to use. Now, another great way to counter tanks using Piper's super is to break open the map and expose those kind of brawlers. For instance, you should be breaking walls to expose throwers, you should break bushes to expose assassins / tanks, and you should break walls to also expose other long-range sharpshooters from having any sort of cover. Now, speaking of Piper's super, the whole reason why she shot it up into the S tier again is because of her brand new hypercharge that she got. When activated, Piper's next super will drop 6 bombs instead of 4 and will travel faster. When she lands, she will also knock back enemies and destroy the environment. Even if you don't really get a lot of value out of the hypercharge itself, having the additional 25% damage buff to Piper's main attack shots makes her even stronger, and she can easily one-tap many of the brawlers within the game now. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about for the video is going to be Max. Now, Max is easily considered to be one of the best support brawlers in the game because of her hypercharge. When activated, Max's next super throws an energy drink to herself and all allies, regardless of whether they are in range of her or not. All targeted allies receive a movement speed increase, but will grant 25% supercharge to the allies if and only if the energy drink hits. Max has pretty much always been such a solid support brawler, but let's be honest here, the whole reason she's in the S tier now is because of her hypercharge. It's more important than before to try and get as much value as possible since, well, for one, the hypercharge is harder to get compared to her normal super, but secondly, Max's hypercharge is way better than getting a speed boost since everybody will also be getting a supercharge increase by 25%. Now, another positive aspect to Max's kit is she has good mobility and she has pretty good DPS, so she is going to be a great counter to like all of the brawlers in the game. If you can dodge or use obstacles around the map to get within range of the longer range brawlers, you can easily just burst them down like you would with throwers. Most of those types of brawlers don't have a ton of health or have a slower unload speed, so there's no way they're going to be able to take Max down. Now, clearly with Max being a support brawler, you want to try to play with brawlers that are going to cater to Max's speed. Special comps such as Gene Max Sandy or Max Double Tank are prime examples of where you need to try your best to cycle supers and support your teammates. It's also better to super when your team has ammo and health, as it's way harder to get value when you are all low and have no ammo. But okay guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about for the video is going to be Sandy. Now, kind of like Max, the main reason why Sandy is shotted up to being one of the strongest brawlers in the game is because of his hypercharge. When activated, Sandy's next super prevents affected enemies from using any attacks, supers, gadgets, or hypercharges for half a second. This sandstorm will also increase the movement speed of Sandy and his teammates when they're in its range by 20%. Now when using Sandy's super, there's a couple of scenarios I do want to walk you guys through of when you guys should be using Sandy's super. The first one is if you have your entire team alive and you want to maintain control of the map, then throw it down so you don't lose control. The second one is if your entire team is dead and you want to regain pressure together, then throw it where you want to regain control at. Third is if you need to carry your team and see an opportunity, so just throw it down for yourself and whoever is near so you can capitalize and hopefully make a clutch play. Now another fantastic thing about Sandy's kit is he has that Sweet Dreams gadget to disarm the enemies. When using this gadget, if you can stun multiple enemies, that is just going to be added value you get with the gadget, which is a bonus. Since you only have so many gadgets to use throughout the game, every single gadget counts. Now even though Roost Sands doesn't really pair well with Sandy's Sweet Dreams gadget, you still need to be running Roost Sands because it is the superior star power. While the damage over time is minor, the larger radius and long duration prevents healing and can slowly drain the enemy's health if they enter the sandstorm. The sandstorm will also allow you and your teammates to possibly defeat them or force the enemy to stay far away from the area, which is going to be very effective for area control based game modes. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Angelo. Now even though Angelo has received more nerfs, he's still going to be considered to be one of the stronger brawlers in the game. The nerfs that he received is that it now takes 3 fully charged shots to charge his super, and his damage was decreased from 4400 to 4000. Even though these are great nerfs to Angelo to try and balance him out, he can still do so much damage with his main attack, plus even more thanks to his super. Now speaking of his super, you gotta be trying to charge up and cycle up your super as much as possible so you can do that additional tick damage and possibly finish off some enemies. Just remember that the longer you are aiming down your sight, the more poison damage you can do over the next 3 seconds when connecting with your main attack. Plus if you are running the Empower Star Power, this is another reason why you need to be standing in that poison cloud. So yes, you want to stand in the poison cloud to deal more damage with your arrows, but it's also going to be helpful to keep your health up and stay alive. Now just like Piper, Angelo also received a hypercharge within the recent update, but it's not going to be as good as people think. When activated, Angelo's poison cloud moves with him. Now the main reason why I'm claiming Angelo's hypercharge isn't the greatest is how long it takes to charge it up. So since it takes very long for Angelo to charge up his hypercharge, kind of like a brawler like Miko, it is going to be pretty hard to get at least one hypercharge every match. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Rico. Now the main reason why Rico has cracked the top 10 list this month is because of his new hypercharge. When activated, projectiles from Rico's super bounce much further than usual, but it is still going to be very good to shut down lanes and just be extremely annoying to deal with on maps with lots of walls. Now Rico has always been a pretty decent brawler in the meta because he shines on maps that have a lot of walls and bushes, but now with him getting this hypercharge, oh man, he can really enjoy some time in the spotlight. If you think about it, Rico has always been good on maps like Split, Hard Rock Mine, and other maps within the game, but now with this hypercharge, he can be more viable on other maps and game modes that may not have a lot of walls and bushes. Also considering that the hypercharge doesn't take as long to charge compared to a brawler like Angelo, it makes it easy to cycle up if you can hit multiple enemies with his hypercharge. Now if you want to enhance the hypercharge even more, I recommend running Rico's star power super bouncy. This star power will make it easier to not only kill the enemies because you'll be dealing more damage, but you will also be able to charge up your super much faster. So make sure you're trying to bounce your shots off of walls to kick that star power into effect whenever you can. Another positive aspect to Rico's kit is having that multi-ball launcher gadget so he can stand his ground in the meta. This is a great gadget to deal lots of damage quickly to tanks, assassins, or aggressive brawlers in general. All of those bullets that get shot out will deal 896 damage each and will help Rico chip down the enemies that get too close to him. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Melodie. Now Melodie did receive a nerf within the recent set of balance changes to her total health. Her health was nerfed from 8200 to 7200. This will make her a bit weaker and easier to kill, so going aggressive will be a little bit more risky, but Melodie is still going to be a very strong brawler in my opinion. Now the thing that made Melodie very strong in the meta was her interlude gadget, and that didn't get a nerf at all. When Melodie has a music note that revolves around her, she receives a shield that initially blocks the 10% of health dealt to her. The shield's health is increased by an additional 10% for every note that is surrounding Melodie. But as you guys all know, this gadget is going to be paired very well with her super. Since we know that Melodie's super doesn't deal any damage, there isn't a real threat if you're being pressured by Melodie. So this gadget will help you stay alive a little bit longer if you plan on dashing towards the enemies or if you just need to stay alive. Now whenever you're using the interlude gadget, I always try to recommend to people to try and use it when you have at least 3 orbs orbiting you. Since you can have a maximum shield of a few thousand health if you use the gadget with 3 notes, that's just way more additional health on the shield you can gain. In a nutshell, this just helps Melodie play more aggressive when dashing all over the map, and it helps her stay alive while doing so. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Draco. Now Draco did receive nerfs as well, but he's still going to be considered to be one of the best tanks in the game. The nerf that he received was that his damage reduction with his super has been nerfed from 25% to 15%. Now don't get me wrong, Draco's super is still going to be very good where you need to pressure up the map and just push enemies back. His super is still going to be a great way to play aggressive and use that fire breathing attack to apply a ton of pressure onto the enemies. Since it sprays in such a wide cone as well, it'll help you cover a large area wherever you are attacking. Now let's flip the situation, like if you're low and you need a way to escape, go ahead and use your super and use the increased movement speed to help you run away. In tight situations where you are trying to escape death, using your super might be your savior. If you are extremely low, however, you might end up wasting your super if you die. So kinda just gauge the situation and use your super wisely. Now if you're absolutely cooking with Draco in his alternate form, go ahead and use your super again so you can keep that super form a lot longer and continue your aggression. This is something that makes Draco even tougher to deal with. You need to chain up your next super within those 10 seconds you have your super so you can potentially stay in your super form even longer. But okay guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be Lily. Now before the recent update, Lily has been a brawler most people kind of forget about, but after her rework, oh my god, she is extremely broken. The rework that Lily got was that Lily's ammo slot was increased from 1 to 2. So now Lily has an additional ammo slot to attack the enemies with, and this basically just doubles the amount of DPS she can do, which is nuts. Now prior to her rework, I mean, one of the things that made her super irritating to deal with was her vanish gadget. If you notice that a lot of incoming damage is coming your way, you can just activate your gadget and escape into the shadow realm for the next couple seconds and avoid all the heavy damage. You can also use your gadget to hide inside of a bush and travel to wherever you need to go for the next 3 seconds and use that to get closer to the enemy. Also, there is just no way that the enemies will be able to tell if you change directions after activating your gadget. It's just a fantastic escape tool in general. And of course, now with Lily having the second bar of ammo, she's gonna do so much more damage, and even more so thanks to her spiky star power. With the help of the spiky star power, being able to deal 50% extra damage with your next main attack just makes it so much more rewarding when connecting with your super. Just think about it, the more damage you can deal with Spiky, the faster you will charge up your super, and the more backstabs with increased damage you can do onto the enemies. It's a vicious snowball effect that can frustrate the enemies and get you some easy kills. Alright guys, the next brawler we're going to be talking about for the video is going to be Frank. Now as you guys all probably know by now, Frank with his rework has made him completely broken. The rework was that Frank's main attack delay now decreases whenever his health gets lower. This has made Frank completely broken because his attack cooldown when he's about to die is basically nothing, and this allows him to basically kill anybody in the game as long as he has the ammo for it. And of course the devs are like, oh, you know, a rework is not enough for Frank, let's go and give him a hypercharge as well. With Frank's hypercharge, he'll be able to fire his super from all directions in a huge radius. It helps with keeping the enemies far away from him first off, but secondly, it's hard for enemies to escape its range once they are within it. Also considering that the hypercharge charge rate isn't extremely difficult to achieve like Angelo or Miko's, it makes getting it and using it even more game breaking. Well, there you guys go with the best brawlers you guys gotta be playing for July 2024. Let me know in the comments down below who you guys think the strongest brawler in the game is right now. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that ranking video, I highly recommend go check out this ranking video right here.